The desert wind carried sand across the excavation site, stinging Laura Bennett's face as she knelt beside the newly exposed stone entrance. She had been digging in the Atacama Desert for 3 months, and this was the first real discovery. The door was smooth, too smooth to be natural rock. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in the harsh sunlight. "Commander Zekthar, you need to see this," Laura called out. The tall Vorton officer approached. His forearms crossed over his armored chest. He looked down at Laura with barely hidden contempt. Humans were new to the galactic community, barely 50 years since first contact. To species like the Vortons, who had explored space for thousands of years, humans were children playing with tools they did not understand. "What have you found now, human?" Zekthar's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Lavra pointed at the symbols. "This writing predates anything in the galactic database. I checked 3 times. Daniel Price, her research assistant, ran up with scanning equipment. The young man's face was flushed with excitement. "Lavra, the readings are crazy. There's a massive hollow space under us, at least 50 meters down." Zekthar activated his wrist communicator. "Bring the excavation drones. We open this chamber now." Within an hour, a team of robots had cleared the entrance. A steep ramp led down into darkness. The air that escaped from the opening was cold and dry, unchanged for millennia. Laura felt her heart racing. This was why she became an archaeologist. High scholar Mervain arrived as they prepared to descend. The elderly Cathari moved slowly on 6 legs, his translator device clicking softly. Fascinating. These symbols match nothing in our historical records. The Galactic Council will want to examine this personally. After we document everything properly, Lavra said firmly. This is a scientific discovery, not a military prize. Zekthar's eyes narrowed. You forget your place, human. The Council decides what happens here, not you. Lavra held his gaze. I found it. My team excavated it. We do this right. The Vorton commander looked ready to argue, but Mervain raised one clawed hand. Let the humans do their work, Commander. Dr. Bennett has earned that much. They descended into the chamber with lights and cameras. The ramp ended in a vast circular room carved from solid rock. In the center stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal sat something that made Laura stop breathing. It was a skull, but unlike any skull she had ever seen. It was enormous, easily twice the size of a human head, made from some kind of crystal that seemed to contain its own light. The bone structure was alien but elegant, with sweeping curves and hollow spaces that suggested a being of great intelligence. Empty eye sockets stared out into the darkness. What species is this? Daniel whispered. Mervain moved closer, his translator clicking rapidly. I do not know. This should not exist. Every known species in the galaxy has been catalogued. Lavra approached the pedestal carefully. The skull seemed to pulse with faint energy. More symbols covered the base of the pedestal, similar to those on the door, but more complex. She pulled out her camera and began taking photographs. Do not touch it, Zekthar ordered. We do not know what defenses it might have. Laura ignored him. She had spent her entire life studying ancient cultures. This was the discovery of a lifetime. She reached out slowly, her fingers trembling, and touched the crystal surface. The world exploded into light. Symbols blazed to life across every surface of the chamber. The skull's eye sockets filled with brilliant blue radiance. Lavra stumbled backward, but the light followed her. It was scanning her, somehow looking into her with vision that went beyond the physical. Bennett, get back! Zekthar shouted. The light intensified, focusing entirely on Laura. She felt something touch her mind, a presence vast and ancient beyond comprehension. It was not hostile, but it was searching for something. Images flashed through her thoughts. Memories of Earth, her childhood. Humanity's first steps into space. Wars and peace. Art and science. Love and loss. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light faded. Laura stood shaking, tears streaming down her face without knowing why. The skull remained on its pedestal, but now it seemed to be looking directly at her. The symbols on the walls continued to glow softly. "What just happened?" Daniel asked, rushing to her side. "I don't know," Laura said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "It was looking at me. Looking into me." Zekthar pulled out a weapon. "This artifact is too dangerous. We seal this chamber and report to the council immediately." "No." Laura stepped between him and the skull. "This is a first contact situation. We need to understand what this is. You dare give me orders?" "I dare ask you to think," Laura said. "That skull just scanned me. It could have killed me, but it didn't. It was looking for something specific. We need to know what." Mervain moved closer to the pedestal, studying the symbols. "She is right, Commander. These writings contain mathematical sequences. Star charts. This is not a tomb. It is a message." "A message from whom?" Zekthar demanded. "From whoever built this chamber," Laura said. She pointed to the symbols. "Look at the patterns. They're not random. Daniel, start documenting everything. Mervain, can you translate any of this?" The old scholar shook his head. "The mathematics I understand. They show the positions of stars as they were thousands of years ago, long before my people achieved spaceflight. But the written language is unknown to me." Laura pulled out her scanner and began recording data. The skull watched her work, its eye sockets glowing faintly. She could still feel the touch of that ancient presence in her mind. It had looked at her memories, her entire species, and judged them somehow. But for what purpose? "Commander," one of Zekthar's soldiers called from the entrance. "We are detecting an energy signature spreading throughout the area. Source is the artifact. Shut it down," Zekthar ordered. "We cannot, sir. The energy is not responding to any of our countermeasures." Zekthar grabbed Laura's arm. "What did you do?" "I touched it," Laura said. "That's all. I just touched it. You have activated something we do not understand. This excavation is over. All humans are to leave this site immediately. The council will take custody of the artifact." "You can't do that." "I can, and I will." Zekthar signaled his soldiers. "Escort the humans to their transport. They are banned from this site." As the soldiers moved forward, Laura quickly transferred her camera's data to Daniel's scanner. "Get this to Helen Martinez at the linguistics lab," she whispered. "Don't let them take it?" Daniel nodded and slipped the device into his pack. Laura took one last look at the skull as the soldiers led her away. The ancient artifact seemed to glow brighter for just a moment, as if acknowledging her. She had touched something that predated everything they knew about the galaxy. And somehow, impossibly, it had chosen to show itself to her dot as they climbed back up to the desert surface. Laura's mind raced. The skull was not just an artifact. It was alive, or something close to alive. And it had been waiting down there in the darkness for thousands of years. Waiting for what? Or waiting for whom? The answer, Laura suspected, would change everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the galaxy outside. The desert wind continued to blow, indifferent to the discovery that would shake the foundations of the known universe. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery in the Atacama Desert. Laura Bennett sat in a small office on the Galactic Council research station, staring at Earth through the viewport. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel, but she could not appreciate its beauty. Her discovery had been taken from her, locked away in a secure laboratory while alien scientists tried to unlock its secrets, and failed. Dr. Helen Martinez entered without knocking, carrying a datapad. The older woman's face showed frustration. They still can't get it to respond. Admiral Krenver is threatening to destroy it. Lara stood up quickly. They can't do that. It's irreplaceable. They're scared, Lara. The skull has been broadcasting that energy signature for 3 weeks. Every ship within 10 light years can detect it. No one knows what it means. Helen sat down heavily. Gregory Nash has been arguing with the council nonstop, but humans don't have much pull yet. We're too new. Did Daniel get the data to you? Helen nodded. Yes, and I've been working on the translations. The mathematics are clear enough. They show star positions from approximately 50,000 years ago. But there's something else. She activated the datapad. The symbols contain patterns that match human mathematical concepts. Not Vorton, not Cathari, not any other known species. Human. That's impossible, Lavra said. Humans only reached space 70 years ago. I know, but the patterns are there. Fibonacci sequences. Golden ratios. Base 10 counting systems. Whoever carved those symbols understood mathematics the way humans do, not the way aliens do. A loud alarm suddenly echoed through the station. Helen's communicator beeped urgently. All personnel to emergency stations. The artifact has activated. Repeat. The artifact has activated. Lavra ran. She knew the station's layout by now, having spent 3 weeks exploring while banned from her own discovery. The laboratory was on level 7, surrounded by heavy security. By the time she arrived, a crowd had gathered at the observation windows inside the laboratory. The skull blazed with light. Symbols raced across its surface too fast to read. The scientists inside were backing away, their instruments sparking and failing. Admiral Krenver stood at the control panel, his scales flushed dark with anger. What is happening? He demanded. Unknown, sir, a technician replied. The artifact is scanning the entire station. Every computer, every database, every living being. We cannot stop it. Lavra pushed through the crowd to the window. The skull turned slowly on its pedestal, as if looking around the room. Then its eye sockets locked onto. Through the glass dot, the world shifted. Lavra found herself standing in a space that was not space. White light surrounded her, but there were no walls, no floor, no ceiling. A figure materialized before her, tall and elegant, made of the same crystal as the skull. It had 4 arms, 3 eyes arranged in a triangle, and a presence that radiated ancient wisdom. Do not be afraid, the figure said. Its voice was not sound but thought, speaking directly into her mind. What are you? Lavra asked. I am the eternal witness, the last memory of the eternal ones. My people created much of what your galaxy now uses. The hyperspace gates, the star charts, the foundation of technology that all species build upon. Why contact me? The witness gestured, and images appeared in the white space. Great cities of crystal and light. Ships that moved between stars like fish through water. Beings of incredible intelligence working together to build wonders. We uplifted many species, the witness explained. We gave them knowledge, technology, the tools to reach the stars. But we made a mistake. We gave them power without teaching them wisdom. They became arrogant. They believed their technology made them superior to all others. The images changed, showing war. The crystal cities burning. Ships destroying each other. The Eternal Ones fighting their own children, trying to stop the destruction they had caused. We fell, the witness said. Not because we were weak, but because we had created something we could not control. Arrogance combined with power. In our final days, we preserved our knowledge, hoping that someday a species would emerge that could use it wisely. And you think humans can? Lavra asked. I have searched your memories. I have seen your species' history. You have known war, yes. You have built terrible weapons. But you have also created art. You have shown mercy to your enemies. You have chosen to save those weaker than yourselves, even when it cost you dearly. More images appeared. Humans helping after disasters. Doctors working in war zones. People risking their lives to protect strangers. The ugly parts of human history were there too, but the witness focused on the moments of compassion. You are young, the witness continued. You make mistakes, but you learn from them. You grow. This is what the galaxy needs. Not another species that believes technology makes them superior, but one that understands technology is just a tool. Wisdom must guide it. Why me specifically? Because you touched the skull with curiosity, not greed. You sought knowledge, not power. And when you looked into our memories, you felt sorrow for our fate, not triumph. This is the quality we searched for. This is why I chose to awaken now. The white space began to fade. Return to your world, Lavra Bennett. You will be our herald. You will carry our message to the galaxy. It will not be easy. Many will reject you, but you must persist. The future depends on choices made in the present. Wait, Lavra called out. I don't know what to do. You will know, the witness said. Trust in your humanity. That is your greatest strength. Lavra gasped and found herself back in the corridor, surrounded by confused people. Through the window, the skull's light was fading, but something had changed. On Laura's skin, faint crystalline patterns now traced across her hands and arms, glowing softly with the same blue light as the skull. Admiral Krenver burst out of the laboratory. Seize that human. She has contaminated the artifact. No, Helen stepped between them. Look at the readings. The artifact is stable now. The energy signature has stopped. Gregory Nash pushed through the crowd, his diplomatic credentials clearing a path. Admiral, I demand an explanation. What just happened to Dr. Bennett? She interfered with our research, Krenver said. She will be detained. You'll do no such thing. Nash's voice was firm. Dr. Bennett is a human citizen on a council station. If you arrest her, it will be an act of war. The standoff lasted several long seconds. Finally, Krenver backed down. Fine, but I want answers. What did that artifact do to you, human? Laura looked at her hands, watching the patterns glow and fade. It spoke to me. It showed me things. The Eternal Ones, they were called. They built most of the technology the galaxy uses today. Impossible, Krenver said. We developed our own technology. Did you? Lavra met his gaze. Or did you find their ruins and build on their foundation? The hyperspace gates existed before the Vortons discovered space travel. Everyone knows this. Mervain pushed through the crowd, his old eyes bright with interest. She is right. Ancient structures exist throughout the galaxy. We never knew who built them. Could they truly be from this Eternal One species? The skull can prove it, Lavra said. But only if you let it. It's not dangerous. It's a teacher, waiting for students willing to learn. Krenver looked skeptical, but he gestured toward the laboratory. Then teach us. Show us what you claim to know. Lavra entered the laboratory slowly. The skull sat on its pedestal, quiet now, but still emanating a sense of ancient presence. She approached it carefully, aware that everyone was watching. When she reached out, the skull responded immediately. Light flowed from it to her, and from her to the display screens around the room. Images appeared. Star maps showing the galaxy as it was 50,000 years ago. Mathematical formulas that explained faster than light travel. Blueprints for technologies far beyond current galactic understanding. And threading through it all, a simple message repeated over and over in every language known to exist. Wisdom before power. Compassion before conquest. Service before dominance. The The scientists stared in stunned silence at the flood of information. This was more knowledge than they could process in a lifetime, all freely given, asking nothing in return except that it be used wisely. Mervain approached Laura slowly. "How do we access this information?" "I think I'm the key," Laura said, looking at the patterns on her skin. "The skull chose me to be its voice. I don't know why, but I'll do my best." Admiral Krenver's expression was unreadable. "This changes everything." "Yes," Laura agreed. "It does." She looked at the skull, and for just a moment, she could have sworn it was looking back at her with approval. The Eternal Ones had waited 50,000 years for this moment. Now their message would finally be heard. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to listen. The research station shook violently. Alarms screamed through the corridors as systems began failing one by one. Laura stood in the laboratory, her hand still touching the crystalline skull, unable to move. The connection between them had grown too strong, too deep. She was not in the laboratory anymore. She was somewhere else entirely. The quantum space the skull created was vast beyond measurement. Laura floated in an ocean of memory, watching the rise and fall of the Eternal Ones play out before her like a movie written in light, and thought she saw their beginning. A species born on a world of crystal mountains and silver seas. They learned quickly, reaching for the stars with curiosity and wonder. Unlike so many others, they did not conquer. They explored. They studied. They helped. The Eternal Witness appeared beside her, its crystalline form glowing softly. "We found younger species struggling to survive. We gave them fire. We gave them agriculture. We gave them medicine. We believed that sharing knowledge was the highest purpose." Laura watched civilizations bloom under the Eternal One's guidance. The Vortons, proud and strong. The Cathari, wise and patient. Dozens of other species, all learning and growing. The galaxy became a garden of cultures, each unique but connected. "It was beautiful," Laura whispered. "It was," the witness agreed. "For 10,000 years, we built wonders together. But then something changed. The species we had helped began to believe they had earned their advancement through their own merit alone. They forgot who had given them the foundation. They looked at their technology and called themselves superior to others. The vision darkened. Laura saw the Vortons claiming ancient Eternal One structures as their own inventions. The Cathari hoarding knowledge instead of sharing it. Wars breaking out over resources and territory. The garden becoming a battlefield. "We tried to stop it," the witness said. "We pleaded with them to remember the principles we had taught. Cooperation over competition. Wisdom over power. But they would not listen. They called us weak. They said the strong deserved to rule, and they were now strong." Laura felt tears on her face as she watched the Eternal One's final war. Their own children turning against them, using weapons built from stolen eternal technology. Crystal cities falling. Billions dying. The Eternal Ones could have fought back with full force, could have crushed the rebellion easily, but they chose not to. "Why didn't you fight?" Laura asked. "Because fighting would prove them right. It would show that power is the only thing that matters. We chose instead to withdraw, to preserve our knowledge, and hope that someday a wiser species would emerge." "And you think humans are that species?" The witness turned to face her fully. "I have looked into your history, Laura Bennett. I have seen your wars, your cruelty, your mistakes. But I have also seen something the Eternal Ones never achieved. You choose mercy even when you could choose destruction. You save your enemies. You protect the weak even when it costs you. You create beauty in the midst of horror." Images of humanity flash past. Soldiers sharing food with starving enemies. Scientists working together across borders to cure diseases. artists creating hope in refugee camps, ordinary people performing extraordinary acts of kindness. Your species is young and makes many errors, but you learn from them. You improve. You never lose your capacity for compassion, even as you gain power. This is what we were looking for. This is why I chose you. The space around them began to crack. Lavra could hear Daniel's voice from far away, shouting her name. The station was dying, unable to handle the energy pouring from the skull. I can't leave them, Lavra said. My people are in danger. Then make your choice, the witness said. Accept the role of herald. Carry our message to the galaxy. Bear the burden of representing humanity's best qualities. Or reject it and return to your normal life. The skull will shut down, the knowledge will be lost, and the galaxy will continue on its current path. What path is that? The witness showed her a vision of the future. War spreading across the galaxy. Species destroying each other over resources and pride. The garden becoming a wasteland. And at the center of it all, humanity caught in the middle, forced to fight or die because no one would listen to reason. But if you accept, the witness continued, showing a different future. If you become the herald and share our knowledge wisely, the galaxy can change. Not overnight, not easily, but it can grow into what it was always meant to be. A true community of species working together. Lavra thought about her life. Her quiet work as an archaeologist. Her simple apartment on Earth. The peaceful existence she had always wanted. Accepting this burden would mean giving all of that up. It would mean standing before the entire galaxy, marked by crystal patterns on her skin, claiming to speak for an ancient species. Many would hate her. Many would call her a fraud. The pressure would be enormous. But she thought about the eternal ones, choosing to die rather than prove that might makes right. She thought about the possibilities, the chance to help her species, and all others avoid the mistakes of the past. I accept, Lavra said. The quantum space exploded with light. Power flowed through her, not changing her, but enhancing what was already there. Her mind expanded, able to access the skull's vast database of knowledge. Her body strengthened, able to survive in environments that would kill normal humans. But most importantly, her compassion grew. Her ability to understand and empathize with others, regardless of species or background. She opened her eyes in the laboratory. The station had stopped shaking. The alarms had gone quiet. Around her stood Daniel, Helen, Gregory Nash, Kevin Foster, the security officer, and a dozen others who had refused to evacuate. And the skull. The ancient crystalline artifact that had waited 50,000 years for this moment, was slowly lowering itself from its pedestal. It moved with purpose, with consciousness, bending forward until it touched the ground before Lavra in what could only be described as a bow. A kneel. Admiral Krenver stood at the doorway, his weapon drawn but not raised. What is happening? Lavra stepped away from the skull, feeling its presence still connected to her mind. The skull is acknowledging the transfer of authority. The Eternal One's knowledge is now in humanity's care. One human cannot speak for an entire species, Krenver protested. You're right, Lavra agreed. I can't. But I can be a voice, a representative, until humanity as a whole is ready to take on this responsibility. The skull chose me as herald, but the knowledge belongs to everyone who proves worthy of it. Mervain moved closer, studying the kneeling skull with wonder. In all my years of research, I have never seen anything like this. An ancient intelligence choosing a successor, acknowledging a new guardian. Why humans? Krenver demanded. Why not the Vortons? We have been in space for thousands of years. We have built empires. That's exactly why not, Lavra said gently. The Eternal Ones fell because their students became arrogant. They're looking for different qualities now. Not age or power, but wisdom and compassion. And you believe humans possess these qualities? Some of us do. Enough of us do. And we're still learning, still growing. That's the point. We haven't become set in our ways. We haven't decided we know everything. The skull pulsed with light, and suddenly everyone in the room could see what Laura saw. A vision of two possible futures laid out clearly. One where the galaxy continued down its current path of competition and eventual conflict. Another where species learned to work together, sharing resources and knowledge, building something greater than any one civilization could achieve alone. The choice is yours, Laura said, speaking not just to those in the room, but knowing somehow that her words were being broadcast across the station, across the fleet gathered nearby, across the council chambers on distant worlds. The Eternal Ones have given us their knowledge freely. They ask only that we use it wisely. We can reject it and continue as before, or we can accept it and build something better. Supreme Chancellor Thongon's voice came over the communication system. This is madness. One human making demands of the entire galaxy. I'm not making demands, Laura replied. I'm offering a choice. The skull will share its knowledge with anyone willing to learn, any species willing to put wisdom before pride. But it won't be used for weapons. It won't be hoarded by the powerful. It belongs to everyone or no one. And who decides worthiness? Dargon challenged. Laura touched the skull gently. It responded to her, its light flowing through her fingers. The skull does. The Eternal Witness knows the hearts of those who approach. It can see if someone seeks knowledge for the good of all or just for personal gain. Kevin Foster spoke up from where he stood guarding the door. I saw the visions too. I'm just a security officer, nobody important. But even I could understand the message. Work together or fall apart. It's not complicated. Humans simplify everything, Krenver muttered. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Helen said. Maybe we've all made this too complex, too political. The Eternal One's message is simple. Be kind, be wise, help each other. Why is that so hard to accept? The skull's light pulsed once, then went dark, except for a soft glow from its eye sockets. It remained kneeling before Laura, a position of respect and acknowledgement that everyone could see and understand. Laura felt the weight of what she had accepted settling onto her shoulders. She was the herald now, the bridge between the Galactic Council chamber on Earth's moon was designed to hold 500 delegates. Today, it held over 3,000. Every species in the known galaxy had sent representatives to witness what many were calling either the greatest discovery in history or the greatest deception. Laura Bennett stood at the center of the chamber, the crystalline skull floating beside her on an anti-gravity platform. The patterns on her skin glowed softly, marking her as the herald of the Eternal Ones. She wore simple clothing, refusing the ceremonial robes that Ambassador Nicole Wright had suggested. This was not about pageantry. It was about truth. Nicole sat in the human delegation section, her expression carefully neutral. She had spent the last 3 days negotiating, just to get Laura this opportunity to speak. Many delegates wanted the skull seized and Laura arrested. Others wanted to pretend the whole thing never happened. Christopher Yuan, the human military advisor, stood near the exit. His hand rested on his weapon, though Laura had told him it would not be needed. She hoped she was right. Order, Supreme Chancellor Thogon called out. The Zintari leader's scales shimmered with agitation. We are here to evaluate the claims made by the human Laura Bennett regarding an ancient species and their alleged technology. There's nothing alleged about it, Laura said calmly. The skull can prove everything I've said. Then let it speak, Executor Draumek demanded. The Vorton war leader stood with his forearms crossed, his face twisted with contempt. Let this supposed ancient intelligence address us directly. Laura touched the skull. Immediately, Holographic projections filled the chamber. The assembled delegates gasped as images of the Eternal Ones appeared around them, as real as if the ancient beings stood among them. The Eternal Witness manifested, its crystalline form towering over the crowd. When it spoke, every translator in the chamber rendered its words perfectly into each species' native language. I am the Eternal Witness, last memory of the Eternal Ones, for 50,000 years. I have waited in silence, preserving the knowledge of my people. Now I speak, and you will hear truth. The holographic display changed, showing the galaxy as it was in ancient times. Primitive species struggling on isolated worlds. Then the Eternal Ones appeared, reaching out with friendship and knowledge. Technology shared freely. Civilizations guided gently toward the stars. We built the hyperspace gates you use, the witness said. We charted the safe routes through dangerous space. We created the medical databases that save your lives, the agricultural techniques that feed your people, the power generation systems that fuel your cities. Everything you consider the foundation of galactic civilization came from us. Lies, Drelmic shouted. The Vortons developed our technology through our own genius. The display shifted, showing Vorton history, but not the version taught in their schools. This showed the truth. Vorton explorers finding Eternal One ruins, studying the technology, copying it, building on it, then claiming it as their own creation. Similar scenes played out for every major species in the galaxy. The Kithari finding ancient libraries. The Zentari discovering abandoned power stations. The Drex stumbling upon weapons caches. All of them building their civilizations on the Eternal One's foundation. Then forgetting where it came from. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted denials. Others sat in stunned silence. A few, like Mervain, nodded sadly as if they had always suspected the truth. Silence. Dargon commanded. When order was finally restored, he turned to the witness. Why did you allow this? Why let us believe we achieved these advances ourselves? Because you did achieve them, the witness replied. We gave you tools, but you used them to build your own unique civilizations. We gave you knowledge, but you applied it in ways we never imagined. The foundation is ours, but the buildings you constructed on it are yours alone. We took pride in your accomplishments. Then, what went wrong? Mervain asked softly. The display darkened, showing the wars that destroyed the Eternal Ones. But now the delegates could see the full picture. Species they thought were ancient enemies had actually once been close allies. The conflicts that shaped their cultures had all been caused by the same thing: arrogance combined with power. You began to believe that strength justified dominance, the witness explained. That technological advancement proved superiority. That might gave you the right to rule over others. You forgot that we gave you these gifts freely, asking nothing in return but that you use them wisely. Instead, you used them to conquer each other. And you did nothing to stop us? Drelmic challenged. We tried. We pleaded. We reasoned. But you would not listen. You called us weak. You said that if we truly were superior, we would use our power to force obedience. So we faced a choice. Fight back and prove that might makes right, or withdraw and hope that someday a wiser species would emerge. You chose to abandon us, Thogan said. We chose not to become what you accused us of being. We chose to preserve our knowledge and wait for someone worthy to receive it. The witness turned its attention to Laura. The skull floated closer to her, still maintaining its kneeling position even in the air. And we found her. Laura Bennett, a human, a species barely a century old in the galactic community. We searched her memories and saw something we had not seen in 50,000 years. A species that chooses mercy over vengeance, that protects the weak instead of exploiting them, that creates beauty even in the midst of suffering. One person does not represent an entire species, Dralmek objected. True, Lavra said, speaking for the first time since the presentation began. I'm just an archaeologist. I'm not special. But that's exactly the point. Any human could have been chosen. The skull looked into my memories and saw not just me, but my whole species. Our history, our values, our potential. She gestured, and the holographic display changed again, this time showing human history. The ugly parts were not hidden. Slavery, war, genocide, oppression, all the terrible things humanity had done. But alongside them, the moments of redemption, the fights for justice, the sacrifices for others, the slow, painful progress toward becoming better. We're not perfect, Lavra continued. We've made terrible mistakes, but we learn from them. We try to do better. We haven't forgotten how to feel compassion, even as we've gained technology. That's what makes us different. Not better, just different. And what gives you the right to claim the Eternal One's legacy? Targan asked. Nothing, Lavra admitted. I don't have any right to it. But the skull chose me anyway. Not because humans are superior, but because we're still young enough to remember what it's like to struggle. We're still close enough to our primitive past to value wisdom over power. The skull pulsed with light, and suddenly every delegate in the chamber felt a touch in their mind. The witness was scanning them, showing them visions of possible futures. They saw the path the galaxy was currently on, conflict and division growing until it erupted into a war that would make the fall of the Eternal Ones look small by comparison. Then they saw the alternative. Species working together, sharing resources and knowledge, building something greater than any one civilization could achieve alone. It was the vision the Eternal Ones had always dreamed of, finally becoming reality. The choice is yours, the witness said. Accept the Herald and work together to build this future. Or reject her and continue on your current path. We cannot force you. We can only offer you the knowledge and hope you have the wisdom to use it well. Dralmek stood abruptly. I will not accept a human as our teacher. The Vortons reject this herald and this ancient meddling. That is your right, Lavra said. The skull will not force itself on anyone. But the knowledge is here for those willing to learn. And who decides who is worthy? Dralmek demanded. You? The skull does. The Eternal Witness knows the hearts of those who approach. It will share knowledge with anyone who seeks it for the good of all, regardless of species. But it will not be used to build weapons. It will not be hoarded for power. It belongs to everyone or no one. Several delegates stood and walked out, Dralmek and his supporters among them. But others remained, leaning forward with interest. McCall caught Laura's eye and gave a small nod of encouragement. Mervain rose slowly on his 6 legs. I have studied ancient history my entire life. I always suspected there was something we had forgotten, some truth buried under our pride. Now I know what it was. We forgot gratitude. We forgot humility. We forgot that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. He turned to face the other delegates. I accept the herald. I will learn from the Eternal One's wisdom and share it with my people. One by one, other delegates stood. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough. Representatives from smaller species who had always felt overshadowed by the great powers. Scientists who valued knowledge over politics. A few military leaders who understood that their current path led nowhere good. This session is adjourned, Targan said, his voice shaking slightly. Each species will decide for themselves whether to accept or reject this herald. But know this, Lavra Bennett. You have fractured the council. Some will see you as a prophet. Others will see you as a threat. Your life will never be simple again. I know, Lavra said quietly. But the Eternal Ones waited 50,000 years for this moment. The least I can do is try to be worthy of their choice. 4 months had passed since Laura Bennett's address to the Galactic Council. The galaxy had not transformed overnight, but it was changing. Slowly, carefully, one choice at a time. Laura stood on the observation deck of a human transport ship, watching the green and blue world of Kepler Station grow larger in the viewport. This colony was on the edge of human space, far from Earth, where pioneer families were building new lives. They had called for help, and Laura had come. "We're getting distress signals from the surface," the pilot called out. "Looks like the Krev are threatening the colonists again." Laura sighed. The Krev were a predatory species who viewed humans as weak prey. They had been raiding human colonies for months, testing to see if humanity would fight back. So far, the colonists had chosen to negotiate rather than kill. The Eternal Ones would approve of that choice. Daniel joined her at the viewport, carrying a data pad. The colony leader is Richard Hayes, former farmer from the Midwest. Brought his whole extended family out here to start fresh. The Krev have been demanding tribute, threatening to attack if the humans don't pay. "And if the colonists pay?" Laura asked. "Then the Krev will just demand more next time." It never ends with species like them. Laura touched the crystalline patterns on her skin, feeling the connection to the skull that remained with her always. The ancient artifact was back on Earth now, in a secure facility where anyone could request access to its knowledge. Dozens of species had already sent scholars. Not enough, but it was a start. "We need to find a better way," Laura said. The ship landed at the colony's main settlement. Richard Hayes met them at the landing pad, a weathered man in his 50s with tired eyes. Behind him stood perhaps 200 colonists, farmers and engineers and teachers who had come to the frontier seeking opportunity. "Dr. Bennett," Richard said, "thank you for coming. We didn't know who else to call. Tell me what's happening." Richard led them to the colony's meeting hall. On the screen, a recording played showing 3 Krev warriors demanding food, supplies, and technology. Their scales gleamed with weapon modifications. Their eyes showed no compassion. "They come every week," Richard explained, "each time demanding more. We've paid them what we could, hoping they'd leave us alone. But yesterday, they took my daughter, said they're keeping her until we give them our harvesting equipment." Laura felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. The Eternal Ones had taught her that anger solved nothing. Where is she now? Their camp, about 50 kilometers north. They're using one of the old surveyor stations as a base. How many Krev? Maybe 20. They're well armed. Christopher Yuan, who had insisted on accompanying Laura on this trip, studied the tactical display. "We could call in military support. The human fleet could be here in 2 days. 2 days is too long," Laura said. "And military action would just prove what species like the Krev believe. That might makes right. We need a different approach." She turned to Richard. "I want to talk to them. They won't listen. We've tried talking. You tried negotiating. I'm going to do something else." An hour later, Laura stood outside the Krev camp with only Daniel and a translator device. Christopher had wanted to come, but she had ordered him to stay with the colonists. This needed to be done without the threat of violence. The Krev guards saw her approach and raised their weapons. "Stop there, human. I'm here to talk to your leader," Laura called out. "We have nothing to say to weak prey." Laura stepped forward despite the weapons. The crystalline patterns on her skin began to glow, and the skull's presence touched her mind, giving her strength. "I am the herald of the Eternal Ones. I speak with their authority. Your leader will want to hear what I have to say." The guards looked uncertain. Every species in the galaxy had heard about the ancient skull by now, though many dismissed it as human propaganda. After a moment, they lowered their weapons and gestured for Laura to follow. The Krev leader was named Schechter, a massive warrior covered in scars. He sat in the old surveyor station surrounded by stolen goods from the colony. A young human girl, maybe 12 years old, sat in the corner looking terrified. "So the famous herald comes to our camp," Schechter said. "Have you come to beg for the child's return?" "No," Laura said. "I've come to give you a choice." Schechter laughed. "You have nothing we want except your surrender." Laura sat down across from him, showing no fear. Daniel stood behind her, his hand shaking slightly but his expression determined. The Eternal Ones left behind more than knowledge. They left behind power. Technology that could reshape the galaxy. Right now, that power is being shared only with species who prove themselves worthy. "Worthy?" Schechter spat. "What does that mean? Strong enough to take it?" "No. Wise enough to use it well. The skull judges the hearts of those who approach it. It can see if someone seeks knowledge for personal gain or for the good of all. And you think we would pass this test?" "I think you could," Laura said. The Eternal Ones believe that every species has potential for both good and evil. The choice of which path to follow is what matters. Schechter leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Why would we care about your ancient skull? We have weapons. We have strength. That is all that matters in this galaxy, is it?" Laura gestured to the stolen goods around them. "You raid colonies because you're strong enough to do it. But what happens when you meet someone stronger? The human fleet will arrive eventually. When they do, will you fight? You might win this battle, but you'll make an enemy of an entire species. Is that really the future you want for your people? Humans are weak, soft. We choose not to kill when we can avoid it. That's not the same as being weak." Laura's patterns glowed brighter. The Eternal Ones were the most powerful species the galaxy has ever known. They could have ruled through force. Instead, they chose to serve, to teach, to help. When their students betrayed them, they chose to withdraw rather than prove that might makes right. They were strong enough to be gentle. "Are you?" Schechter was silent for a long moment. "You offer us access to this ancient power. I offer you a chance to be tested. If you prove worthy, yes. If your heart is focused only on conquest and domination, the skull will reject you. But if you can show that you want better for your people, that you're willing to learn and grow, then the knowledge of the Eternal Ones is available to you just as it is to anyone else. And in exchange, you return the girl unharmed. You stop raiding the colony. You enter into honest negotiations with the humans here, trade agreements that benefit both sides. You prove that you can choose a better path. And if I refuse?" Laura stood. "Then you continue as you are, and when the human fleet arrives, you'll face the consequences of that choice. You'll probably die fighting, and your people will remember you as a brave warrior who led them to destruction. Or you can be the leader who chose wisdom over pride and made his people something greater." She turned to leave, then looked back. The Eternal Ones waited 50,000 years for a species willing to choose differently. They found humanity, but we're not the only ones who can change. The choice is yours, Schechter. What kind of leader do you want to be? Laura walked out of the station, her heart pounding. Daniel followed, and they made it halfway back to the colony before they heard footsteps behind them. Schechter approached alone, the young girl walking beside him unharmed. "Your words have weight, Harold. Perhaps there is more to strength than the ability to kill." He released the girl, who ran toward Laura. The archaeologist caught her and held her close. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet. I will consider your offer. I will speak with the colonists and see if honest trade is possible. But I make no promises. That's all I ask. The chance to try." Schechter looked at the patterns on Laura's skin. "This skull of yours, it truly can see into hearts?" "It can. And it judges fairly, regardless of species or past actions." Everyone deserves a chance to choose better. The Krev leader nodded slowly and walked away. Lavra watched him go, hoping she had made the right choice. 3 months later, Lavra stood in a very different place. The joint research facility on Earth had been completed, a massive structure where scholars from 40 different species worked together to study the Eternal One's knowledge. The skull sat at the center of it all, available to anyone who approached with honest intentions. Mervain was there, leading a team of historians. Helen managed the linguistics department. Daniel coordinated the archaeological studies. Even former executor Dralmek had come, stripped of his military rank but allowed to study as a civilian. He had approached the skull with humility, asking to learn, and it had accepted him. The Krev had sent representatives too. Shakhtar himself had come, and while the skull had shown him that his past actions were wrong, it had also shown him that he could choose differently going forward. He was now working with human colonists on fair trade agreements. Lara walked through the facility, watching species that had been enemies for centuries working side by side. It was not perfect. Arguments still happened. Old prejudices died hard. But they were trying. Nicole found her in the observation gallery. You should see the news. 50 more species have formally requested access to the facility. The council is overwhelmed. Good, Lavra said. Let them be overwhelmed. This is bigger than politics. There are still plenty who oppose you.